Hey all. This is Six Path Weeb, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, we dive into an interesting fanfiction concept. What if Ash met Naruko before getting Pikachu? Before we begin, a quick disclaimer. This content is made purely for entertainment and discussion purposes only. I do not own any of the anime footage or characters used in this video. All rights and credits belong to their respective creators and copyright holders. Now, let's get started. Two teenagers stood facing each other in a quiet valley, directly between two enormous stone statues that rose high into the sky like ancient guardians. The air felt still, as if the world itself was holding its breath. The first teen was Sasuke Uchiha, known as the last of the Uchiha clan. He wore a blue, short-sleeved shirt with a raised collar and the Uchiha crest on the back, along with white arm warmers, white shorts, and open-toed blue sandals. A blue forehead protector rested across his brow. His dark eyes held a focused determination, reflecting a deep inner struggle and a wish to find his own path. The second teen was Naruko Uzumaki, a spirited girl with spiky, sun-kissed blonde hair that always seemed full of energy. She wore an orange outfit with blue accents and a forehead protector like Sasuke's. Soft whisker-like markings rested on her cheeks, a sign of the special chakra within her. Around her, faint glowing energy sometimes shimmered gently, like a protective light that responded to her emotions. Naruko carried both determination and kindness in her heart, and she deeply believed in her bond with Sasuke. "Naruko," Sasuke said quietly, his voice calm but serious, as if he was sorting through many feelings at once. "Sasuke." Naruko replied softly. She looked at him not as an enemy, but as someone important to her future. There was a long silence between them. Words were no longer enough to express everything they felt. Instead of conflict, what stood between them was emotion, understanding, and the weight of their shared journey. They both raised their hands, gathering chakra, energy that responded to will and emotion. Sasuke formed a concentrated stream of lightning-like light in his palm, steady and precise. Naruko shaped a swirling sphere of warm, glowing energy that pulsed like a small sun, bright and steady. For a brief moment, they paused. Their eyes met. And in that moment, something changed. Instead of pure opposition, there was understanding. Both of them realized how deeply their paths were connected, even if they were different. They gently released their techniques forward, not with hatred, but with the hope of understanding what lay ahead. As the energies met, instead of destruction, the valley filled with brilliant light. Colors of blue, gold, and silver shimmered through the air like dancing ribbons. The power did not harm the land or the people, it transformed into something vast and mysterious, like a shining gate opening between possibilities. A gentle wind swept through the valley, and for a moment, everything felt suspended in time. When the light faded, Sasuke and Naruko were no longer standing exactly as before. They had each been gently carried back to safe ground, as if the world itself had decided their story was not ready to end. They were both exhausted, but unharmed. Naruko slowly opened her eyes and looked toward Sasuke, relieved. Sasuke, too, was quiet, his expression softened by what had just happened. Neither spoke at first. The silence between them was different now, calmer, heavier with understanding instead of conflict. Soon, a ninja observer arrived at the scene, quickly checking that both teens were safe. He looked over the valley and then at the two young shinobi, noticing that something important had changed between them. He said nothing at first, only watching the peaceful aftermath of the glowing event that had once been a clash of power. And in that quiet valley, under the watch of the towering stone statues, Naruko and Sasuke each took a step forward in their own thoughts, no longer only defined by rivalry, but by the bond they shared and the path still waiting ahead. Konoha, main gate. Jiraiya leaned casually against the stone wall, though his eyes never stopped scanning the road. Tsunade paced back and forth nearby, her footsteps slowing only when she almost wore a path into the ground. "Calm down, Tsunade," Jiraiya said gently. "She'll be all right." Tsunade stopped pacing, but her expression stayed tense. "I know," she replied softly. "But I can't shake this feeling that something is wrong with Naruko." Jiraiya's playful tone faded. He pushed himself off the wall and placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Naruko is strong. She always finds her way back." Before Tsunade could respond, Sakura's voice rang out in surprise as Kakashi arrived carrying Sasuke, who looked exhausted but safe. Tsunade immediately moved forward, her medical training taking over. She quickly checked Sasuke and gave a relieved nod. "He'll recover," she said. "He just needs rest." Then her expression changed. She looked around carefully. "Where is Naruko?" The question hung in the air. Kakashi hesitated, his visible eye lowering slightly. When I arrived, Sasuke was there, but Naruko's presence was gone. It was as if she had simply vanished in an instant. Even Pakun couldn't find her trail. Silence followed. Tsunade went still, processing the words. Her emotions shifted quickly, shock, fear, and deep worry, but she steadied herself with a breath. We will find her, she said firmly, though her voice carried emotion. We start searching immediately. Jiraiya nodded. Every available lead. No delays. At the mention of Sasuke, Sakura instinctively stepped forward, but Tsunade gently held out a hand to keep things calm. Right now, the priority is Naruko, she said, her tone firm but controlled. Even Sasuke, still resting, looked shaken. I don't know what happened, he said quietly. One moment we were together, and the next. She was just gone. Like she stepped into a place I couldn't follow. Tsunade studied him carefully, then nodded once. I believe you. She turned toward a nearby group of Anbu. Send word. I want Naruko's friends and teachers gathered in my office in 2 hours. A masked Anbu nodded and vanished in a soft swirl of movement. Another stepped forward, removing her mask briefly. It was Yu Gao. Tsunade-sama, she said respectfully, I helped guide Naruko when she was younger. May I attend the meeting as well? Tsunade's expression softened slightly. Of course, Yu Gao. Your insight will help us. After Yu Gao left, Tsunade lowered herself into a chair for a brief moment. The weight of responsibility pressed heavily on her shoulders. She covered her face with her hands, allowing herself a quiet moment to process her worry for the young girl she cared about deeply. But she did not stay still for long. Hospital room. A nurse stepped in gently. Tsunade-sama, Sasuke is awake. Tsunade stood immediately and entered the room. Sasuke sat up slightly, looking tired but alert. His eyes carried uncertainty and concern. Tsunade spoke calmly but directly. I will ask you once. Where is Naruko? Sasuke hesitated, then shook his head. I don't know. One moment we were standing together. And the next, she was gone. I couldn't see where she went. His voice lowered. It felt like she was pulled somewhere far away. Tsunade observed him carefully. After a moment, she gave a small nod. I believe you, she repeated, softer this time. She formed a quick set of hand signs, and a gentle sealing technique activated, not to restrain, but to help stabilize Sasuke's chakra and ensure his rest while they continued investigating. This is just to help you recover, she explained. You are not in trouble. Sasuke gave a quiet nod, too exhausted to protest, but clearly worried about Naruko as well. Tsunade turned toward the window, her gaze firm once more. We will bring her home, she said quietly to herself, and to everyone who cared for the missing girl. And in that moment, the search for Naruko began. 30 minutes later, Tsunade returned with Inoiki, and it took another 20 minutes for him to carefully examine Sasuke's condition. When everything was finally explained, it became clear that Naruko had drawn upon the mysterious fox spirit energy sealed within her during the incident. The truth weighed heavily in the room, especially for Sasuke, who quietly listened as everything was confirmed. Inoiki gave a respectful bow to Tsunade before offering Sasuke a firm but disappointed look, which made the young Uchiha lower his head. Sasuke stood quietly beside Tsunade before finally speaking. So, what happens now? He asked. Tsunade looked at him for a long moment before answering with seriousness, though her voice carried sorrow rather than anger. Normally, situations like this would require a serious council decision, she said. But what matters right now is not punishment. What matters is understanding what happened, and making sure nothing like it happens again. Sasuke nodded slowly. Part of him had expected harsh words, but instead he felt the weight of responsibility more deeply than fear. I almost lost my way, Sasuke admitted quietly. If it weren't for Naruko, I don't think I would have stopped. Tsunade softened slightly at Naruko's name, though her eyes still held sadness. Then she did what she always does, she said gently. She reached out to her friends, even when things were at their worst. She turned and gestured for Sasuke to follow. Come with me. Everyone needs to hear what happened. And they need to know about Naruko. Sasuke hesitated, then followed without argument. Hokage's office. Within the next half hour, nearly everyone who could be gathered arrived at the Hokage's office. Neji, Kuji, and Kiba were still resting and recovering, so they were not present. Shikamaru stood quietly among the group, looking unusually serious. Ino and Sakura arrived soon after, both immediately tensing when they saw Sasuke standing beside Tsunade. Shikamaru frowned. So he's here. Before Tsunade could begin, Gaara stepped forward, his calm voice cutting through the room. "Where is Uzumaki?" he asked directly. The room went quiet. Tsunade lowered her gaze for a moment, her voice soft when she answered. "Naruko is no longer with us." A wave of shock filled the room. Hinata collapsed from the emotional weight of the words, and several others gasped in disbelief. Sakura stared in stunned silence, her expression frozen as if she could not accept what she had heard. Even the air itself seemed to grow still. Gaara's expression tightened. His sand stirred briefly, reacting to his emotions, but then he slowly steadied it. His gaze shifted to Sasuke. Sasuke did not look away. Instead, he met Gaara's eyes with quiet acceptance, as if he understood whatever judgment might come. "If you need to be angry, I won't stop you," Sasuke said softly. But before anything else could happen, a sudden, brilliant light filled the entire room. Unknown location. Far away, in another place entirely, Professor Samuel Oak was having a very unusual night. The weather had turned strange without warning. Strong winds rolled in, and even the Pokémon around him, usually calm and brave, seemed restless and frightened. He had decided to check on a friend, Delia Ketchum, when a sudden flash of lightning struck nearby. He stumbled back in shock. When the light faded, he saw something unbelievable. A small child lay on the ground where the lightning had struck. The child looked to be very young, with sunlit blonde hair and soft whisker-like marks on her cheeks. She wore an oversized orange outfit and a small headband with a leaf symbol engraved on it. Beside her rested a mysterious egg, glowing faintly with warmth. Professor Oak hurried over immediately, checking carefully. After a moment, relief washed over him. "She's alive," he said gently. He looked around, confused and amazed. "Where did you come from?" The child did not answer, still resting peacefully as if the storm itself had carried her safely into this new world. Carefully, Professor Oak lifted her into his arms, making sure the egg was secure as well. "All right," he said softly, determination replacing his confusion. "Let's get you somewhere safe." And with that, he hurried through the rain toward Delia Ketchum's home, carrying the mysterious girl and the strange egg into a new beginning. Last time on the grandson of Oak. "Where's Uzumaki?" a demanding voice asked. Everyone in the room slowly began to realize that Naruko Uzumaki was not there. Everyone except Sakura, who was still staring at Sasuke with hearts practically shining in her eyes. Lady Tsunade looked shaken, her expression filled with worry at the mention of Naruko's name. She's no longer with us," Tsunade said quietly. A wave of shock swept through the room. Hinata fainted from the news, and Gaara's sand stirred violently, swirling toward Sasuke in response. Sasuke lifted his gaze calmly, meeting Gaara's intense look without fear, almost as if he was ready to accept whatever came next. "If you're going to do it, then do it," Sasuke said quietly, his voice steady. But before anything could happen, a brilliant light filled the entire office, swallowing everything in brightness. Unknown location. 46-year-old Professor Samuel Oak was having one of the strangest nights of his life. The Pokémon under his care had been acting unusually restless all day, as if sensing something big approaching. Then a storm rolled in without warning, cutting power across the region. Worried for his friend Delia Ketchum, he set out through the storm to check on her home. Thunder cracked loudly overhead, and rain poured down in sheets. Then, in an instant, a bolt of lightning struck not far from him. When the light faded, Professor Oak found something unbelievable. A small child was lying peacefully on the ground. She looked no older than 4 or 5 years old, with soft blonde hair and faint whisker-like marks on her cheeks. She wore an oversized orange outfit and a small headband with a leaf symbol engraved on it. Beside her rested a mysterious glowing egg. Professor Oak quickly knelt beside her and checked her pulse. "She's alive," he said with relief. Carefully, he lifted the child into his arms along with the egg. "Where did you come from?" he wondered aloud before rushing toward safety and Delia's home through the storm. Naruko's mindscape. Naruko slowly opened her eyes. "Ow! My head," she murmured, sitting up carefully. Her surroundings were strange and unfamiliar. She found herself standing in what looked like a vast, watery underground cavern stretching endlessly in every direction. "This is weird. Even for a dream," she said, looking around cautiously. As she walked forward, the path twisted and shifted until she arrived at a massive sealed gate. A paper seal marked with strange symbols was attached firmly to it, glowing faintly. Naruko frowned. All right. What is going on here? From behind the gate, she heard a deep, unusual presence stirring. It was powerful, but not frightening in the way she expected. Instead, it felt ancient. And lonely. Who's there? Naruko called out. A soft, tired voice responded from within. So she stepped closer to the bars. Inside the chamber was a massive fox-like being resting calmly. It had 9 flowing tails and glowing eyes that reflected centuries of wisdom. Despite its enormous presence, there was something surprisingly gentle in its gaze. Naruko blinked in surprise. So, you're the one inside me? The great fox studied her for a moment before responding. You are braver than most who come here. Naruko Uzumaki. Naruko crossed her arms. Yeah, well, I didn't exactly ask to end up in a giant watery mind cave, you know. The fox gave a quiet, rumbling sound that might have been a chuckle. Few ever do. Naruko sighed. Okay, then tell me. What happened? I remember being with Sasuke. There was something strange happening. And then everything went bright. The fox's expression grew serious. You made a choice in that moment, it said calmly. A choice that protected another, but pulled you into my sealed world as a result. Naruko looked down, trying to piece it together. So, I'm stuck in here? Not stuck, the fox corrected gently. Connected. Naruko was silent for a moment, then looked up with determination in her eyes. All right then. If I'm here, I'm going to understand it. And I'm going to get stronger because of it. The 9-tailed fox observed her quietly, then closed its eyes in approval. Perhaps, it said, you are not just a container after all, Naruko Uzumaki. And within the vast sealed space, something new began to awaken between them, understanding, trust, and the first steps of an unexpected bond. But then what happened after that? Naruko asked. The 9-tailed fox spirit inside her let out a long, weary sigh before responding. You were sent to another world. How? I have no idea, so don't ask. But be grateful you have me inside you, or you wouldn't have survived the journey. Naruko's eyes widened in shock. What do you mean I wouldn't have survived? I mean exactly what I said, the fox replied calmly. Without my chakra protecting you, the strain of crossing worlds would have been too much. I used a great deal of energy to keep you safe. I'll recover. In time. Naruko swallowed hard. Will I ever be able to go home? The fox tilted her head slightly. Maybe one day. I could send you back, but not right now. You'll have to stay here until my strength returns. The words made Naruko feel both relieved and uncertain at the same time. Before she could ask anything else, her surroundings began to blur and fade. Well, it looks like you're waking up, the fox said softly. See you later, I suppose. And then everything went quiet. Real world. Naruko groaned as her eyes slowly opened. A warm light filled the room, and a gentle voice reached her ears. Oh. You're awake. Please stay right there while I go get the professor. A woman had spoken before quickly leaving the room. Naruko looked around, confused. The room felt unfamiliar, clean, and peaceful. She noticed something strange almost immediately. She looked smaller than she remembered. Hopping out of the bed, she rushed to a nearby mirror and froze. She was younger. Before panic could fully rise in her chest, a calm voice interrupted her thoughts. Oh, I see you're already out of bed. Naruko turned toward the sound. 2 people stood at the doorway. The first was an older man with kind eyes and neatly styled gray-brown hair. He wore a lab coat over a purple shirt and looked like someone used to guiding others with patience. Beside him stood a young woman with a warm smile. Her brown hair was tied neatly into a ponytail, and she carried a gentle, caring presence. She looked as if she were preparing to welcome new life into her family, and yet her expression was bright and steady. The man stepped forward first. Hello there. I am Professor Oak, and this is Delia Ketchum. Naruko studied them carefully for a moment before speaking clearly. Naruko Uzumaki. The room fell into a brief, quiet pause, as if her name carried a story they didn't yet understand. 11 years later, Johto League, Silver Conference. The stadium roared with excitement. Lights shimmered across the massive arena as the final match was about to begin. Ash Ketchum stood ready, having just won against his longtime rival Gary Oak. Now, his opponent stood across from him. A mysterious trainer named Ryujin. Ryujin wore a long, dark cloak with a hood that shadowed his face. Only his striking blue eyes were visible beneath it. Every match he had fought so far had ended with a single Pokémon, yet no one had ever clearly seen the creature he used. Each time it appeared, a soft cloud or shimmer would gently hide it from view, adding to the mystery. Ash took a deep breath and nodded toward the referee, ready for battle. But before the referee could announce the start, Ryujin raised a hand. "Wait," he said calmly. "I want to ask Ash something first." The crowd murmured in curiosity. Ash blinked. Sure. What is it?" Ryujin's voice was steady. "Why did you become a Pokémon trainer?" The stadium grew quiet. Even Ash looked surprised. No one had ever asked him that so directly before. Then Ash smiled, bright and confident, as always. "I've got 2 reasons," he said. The crowd leaned in, listening closely. "The first is simple. I want to become the greatest Pokémon master ever." A wave of laughter and cheers filled the stadium at his honest excitement. Ash then lowered his voice slightly, more thoughtful. "But my second reason is to prove myself to someone very important to me." The laughter faded into silence. Ryujin tilted his head slightly. "Someone important?" "Yeah," Ash said, nodding. "Someone I care about a lot." Even Professor Oak in the stand smiled knowingly, as if he understood more than he let on. Delia Ketchum watched quietly, her expression soft with pride. Ryujin paused for a moment. "Was this person special to you?" Ash nodded again. "Yeah. He is very special to me." A gentle breeze passed through the stadium as if the moment itself had grown still. Ryujin slowly nodded. "I see. Then, let's begin." He took hold of his cloak. "Data-bio." With a swift motion, he threw it aside. Standing there was not a boy, but a girl, Naruko. She appeared about 15 years old, with bright blonde hair styled in spiky locks and warm, expressive blue eyes. 3 soft whisker-like marks rested on each cheek, giving her a distinct and memorable look. She wore a black vest, comfortable travel clothing, and carried herself with a confident yet kind presence, as if she had walked a long and meaningful journey to reach this moment. The stadium erupted in astonishment, not from shock or confusion, but from pure amazement at the unexpected reveal. Ash stared for a moment. Then his face broke into a wide, joyful grin. "And Naruko ne?" he said, recognizing her immediately. Naruko smiled back, waving lightly. "Hey there, Ashy boy. Last time on the grandson of Oak." "Oh, was this someone precious to you?" Ryujin asked, watching Ash carefully, curious about his reaction. Ash stayed quiet for a moment before answering honestly. "Yeah. She's someone very precious to me," he said, still unsure why Ryujin wanted to know. Ryujin nodded slowly. "I see. Then, let's begin. Data-bio." With that, Ryujin reached for his cloak and swept it off dramatically. Standing there was a young trainer who looked about 15 years old. She had sun-kissed blonde hair that spiked in soft, lively tufts, and 3 whisker-like marks on each cheek that gave her a distinct and cheerful look. She wore a black flak vest, open at the front, fingerless gloves, and rugged camouflage-style pants tucked into sturdy black boots. A long gray scarf rested around her neck, moving slightly as she stepped forward. "And Naruko ne?" Ash said, surprised. A warm smile lit up her face. "Hey there, Ashy boy." Ash groaned immediately, embarrassed. "How many times have I told you to stop calling me that?" "Every time Gary or I say it," Naruko replied playfully. That made a few people in the stadium laugh, Gary, Professor Oak, Delia, Misty, and Brock among them. Ash sighed, shaking his head, while Naruko just smiled, enjoying the familiar teasing. After a moment, he grew thoughtful. "Wait. I heard you were in another region," Ash said. "I finished up there about a month ago," Naruko explained gently. "Then I had some things to take care of here. After that, Gigi contacted me and told me you and Gary would be entering the Silver Conference. So I thought I'd come see how much you've both grown." She crossed her arms proudly. "And I can see it already. You've both improved a lot in the past 5 years." Ash and Gary both straightened at the praise, a spark of pride in their eyes. "But now," Naruko said with a confident grin, "it's time you face me." She lifted a Pokéball. Ash looked down at Pikachu, who was perched beside him on the battlefield edge. "You ready?" he asked. "Pika." Pikachu replied firmly, jumping down into the arena. The referee raised his flag and confirmed both sides. On one side, Ash Ketchum of Pallet Town. On the other, Naruko Uzumaki of Pallet Town. Let the match begin. The stadium erupted in cheers. Blackthorn City. A woman with long blue hair watched the broadcast closely, her eyes focused on Naruko as she prepared her Pokemon. Show me how much you've grown, Naruko, she said softly, smiling with quiet pride. Saffron City. Another woman sat watching the same battle unfold on a screen, her gaze fixed on Naruko. You're drawing attention everywhere again. Naruko, she said before letting out a light laugh as a playful haunter tickled her feet. Laverage Town. A red-haired girl sat eagerly in front of a television. Grandpa, hurry. Naruko knees about to battle. She called out excitedly. An elderly man walked in with a gentle laugh. Ho ho. I wonder how much she's improved since we last saw her. He smiled warmly at the screen. Let's see how far you've come, Naruko. Back at the battle. All right, Pikachu. Let's do this. Ash called out. Pika. Pikachu responded, ready and focused. Naruko smiled calmly. All right. Haku-chan, it's your turn. She tossed her Pokéball. In a soft flash of light, a graceful Dragonair appeared. Instead of staying still, she immediately curled joyfully around Naruko in a happy greeting before settling into the field. Naruko laughed as she gently steadied herself. Good to see you too, girl, she said warmly. After a moment, Dragonair, Haku-chan, slithered forward into position, ready for battle. Ready, Ashy boy? Naruko teased lightly. Ash sighed, slightly annoyed but determined. You're going down, Naruko-ne. Pikachu, quick attack. Pikachu dashed forward with impressive speed. Naruko's eyes sharpened with focus. Haku-chan, water pulse. A glowing sphere of soft blue energy formed in front of Dragonair before bursting outward in a gentle but powerful wave. Pikachu leapt skillfully, trying to avoid it, showing quick thinking and agility. He landed cleanly and followed through with Iron Tail, continuing the coordinated attack. The crowd erupted with excitement, cheering loudly as the friendly but intense match unfolded, each side pushing the other to grow stronger, not with harm, but with determination, respect, and heart. Wow! He waited until the very last second before making Pikachu jump over the water. Professor Oak exclaimed, clearly impressed by how Ash and Pikachu managed to coordinate their moves so quickly. But something caught his attention. Naruko wasn't surprised at all. Instead, she had a calm, knowing smile on her face, like she had already predicted everything that was about to happen. Gary noticed it too and raised an eyebrow. And just then, as Pikachu was about to land its attack, Naruko suddenly called out with perfect timing, all right, Haku-chan, use Twister. The dragon Pokemon, Haku, opened her mouth gently, releasing a swirling wind that spun forward like a graceful spiral. Pikachu was safely guided away from danger by the force of the move, landing back on the field unharmed, just slightly winded. Pikachu! Ash called out, rushing forward with concern. Brock and Misty stood there, amazed at how perfectly Naruko had responded. Professor Oak slowly shook his head. That girl. She never stops surprising me, he said softly. Gary laughed. Yeah, but then she wouldn't be Naruko-ne if she were predictable. Oak chuckled. That is very true. Down on the field, Ash checked on Pikachu. Are you okay, buddy? Pikachu quickly nodded and hopped back up, ready to continue. Ash smiled with relief and returned to his position. Naruko watched calmly. Are you ready over there? She asked gently. Ash nodded with determination. All right then, Haku-chan, use Aqua Jet. Water gathered around Haku in a shimmering stream as she moved forward with smooth, flowing speed. Ash watched closely. I've never seen anything like this before. But Naruko wasn't finished yet. Now spin and use Ice Beam, she added. A soft glow formed, and the flowing water around Haku began to cool and crystallize. The spinning motion turned it into a beautiful, shining spiral of ice, like a drifting frozen ribbon in the air. Brock's eyes widened. That's an incredible combination. Misty turned to him. What do you mean? Brock explained, still amazed. She didn't just make the move stronger, she combined speed, control, and timing perfectly. It's like turning a simple move into a coordinated technique that's almost impossible to avoid. Misty looked impressed. That's amazing. As the elegant icy spiral reached Pikachu, it gently sent him back to Ash's side, leaving Pikachu a bit tired but still smiling and ready to support his friend. The referee called out, "Pikachu is unable to continue this round. Haku wins." The crowd cheered warmly at the impressive display. Delia looked a little concerned. "Oh, poor Pikachu." Gary and Professor Oak both nodded sympathetically, but Oak added, "Still, Naruko has trained Haku very well. That combination was beautifully executed." Ash gently picked up Pikachu. "You did great, buddy," he said with a smile before returning to his friends. Misty tried to encourage him. "That was still a great effort, Ash." "Yeah," Brock added. "Naruko and Haku are just really strong." Ash nodded, eyes bright with determination. "Naruko-ne is amazing. I've waited a long time for this battle. Gary and I used to talk about how we wanted to show her how much we've grown." Misty blinked. "So your dream is to become a Pokemon master? But also this?" Ash smiled. "Both. And today I finally get to try." Unknown to them, Naruko had overheard everything. She looked toward Ash with a soft, proud expression. "You and Gary have already shown how much you've grown," she thought gently. "I'm proud of you both." She turned back to Haku and pet her softly. The dragon Pokemon made a gentle, happy sound in response. "For this next part," Naruko said kindly, "you can rest for a little while, Haku-chan." Haku happily curled up beside her. Ash stepped forward again. "All right. Totodile, I choose you." With a burst of energy, Totodile appeared, bouncing excitedly in place and full of enthusiasm. Naruko watched with interest, a small smile forming. What a lively partner. Then she reached for her next Pokeball. "If you're ready, Ash. I'll bring out my next partner." The Pokeball opened, and instead of anything frightening, a bright and gentle-looking Pokemon appeared, moving with calm curiosity and friendly energy, as if it were just as excited to meet everyone as it was to battle. It was a bipedal Pokemon with a dark yellow-green shade across its back and much of its front. Its torso, tail tip, and thighs were covered in deep black skin, while its claws and talons carried a striking red color. From the sides of its upper jaw curved large black and red scythe-like tusks. Its eyes were medium-sized, with red irises and sharp black pupils that gave it an intense but focused expression. A ridged, plate-like structure ran from its back up toward its head, giving it a natural armored appearance. Its legs and tail showed a clear segmented pattern, and its arms were small with 3 digits each. Its hands were compact with tiny red claws, while its powerful 3-toed feet ended in bright red talons. "Ash, meet Giri. He's a Haxorus, a dragon Pokemon most commonly found in the Unova region." Just as Naruko finished speaking, Giri gave a mighty roar that echoed across the battlefield arena. The sound was powerful, but it carried more pride than threat, as if he were announcing himself to the world. Totodile paused its playful bouncing and stared in amazement at the impressive dragon Pokemon. "Oh my, this is quite the moment," Professor Oak said, adjusting his glasses as he watched carefully. Delia, surprised by Giri's imposing appearance, lowered her camera for a moment before smiling nervously and steadying her hands again. Gary stood wide-eyed, clearly impressed by the sight of such a rare and powerful Pokemon. "So, are you ready for the next match, Ash?" Naruko said brightly, her tone cheerful and full of confidence, as if introducing a friendly challenge rather than a serious battle. Ash nodded and quickly checked his Pokédex. Haxorus, they are known for their strong sense of loyalty and their protective nature. They are skilled fighters who train hard and challenge opponents with incredible precision, the device explained. Ash took a breath and looked at Totodile. "All right, let's do this, Totodile." Totodile responded with a determined little bounce, trying to show it was ready, even if its eyes widened slightly at the sight of the powerful dragon Pokemon. The referee raised a flag. "All right then, second match, Totodile vs Haxorus. Begin." "Go, Giri. Let's show a controlled dragon claw," Naruko called out. Giri stepped forward with incredible speed for such a large Pokemon. Instead of striking with force, he demonstrated a beautifully controlled motion, his claw glowing with energy as he moved with practiced precision. It was clear this was a display of skill rather than a dangerous attack. Totodile attempted to respond with a playful splash of water, but the difference in experience showed as it was gently guided back by the impact of the technique, landing safely on a soft training mat nearby. There was no harm, just a clear demonstration of strength and control. "Totodile!" Ash called out, quickly running over to check on his partner. Moments later, Totodile popped back up, slightly dizzy but perfectly fine, shaking itself off as if it had just been spun in a fun game. Naruko hurried over as well, her expression kind and concerned. Sorry, Ash. Geary is still learning how to adjust his strength in demonstrations like this. He always tries his best, but he gets very focused when training. She smiled gently and added, outside of practice, he's actually very calm and friendly. He just loves giving his all when it's time to train. As Naruko spoke, Geary had already moved over to another area where Haku was happily playing nearby. The powerful dragon Pokémon lowered his head carefully so they could interact, and Haku responded with cheerful energy, clearly unbothered and enjoying the moment. Ash watched the scene with surprise, then let out a relieved laugh. I guess I didn't expect such a strong-looking Pokémon to be so gentle off the field. He returned Totodile to its Pokéball with a smile. You did great, buddy. Naruko nodded warmly. That's what training is for. Every Pokémon grows at its own pace. Ash looked back at Geary and then at Haku. I thought Haku might be your strongest, he said honestly. Naruko blinked for a moment, then stared at him seriously, before suddenly breaking into laughter, surprising everyone around the stadium. Sorry, she said, wiping a tear of laughter from her eye. It's just that Haku is still the youngest in our group. The stadium fell quiet in shock. Naruko continued kindly, she only hatched from her egg about 2 months ago. A wave of amazed silence passed through the crowd. People looked between each other in disbelief, impressed by how much Haku had already learned in such a short time. If a Pokémon could grow this much in just 2 months, everyone wondered what incredible journeys and friendships the future might bring. Dear YouTube family. That's all for now. Every moment of your support means a lot and keeps this journey going. I'll be back soon with more content worth your time. Until then, stay tuned, stay connected, and keep supporting. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching. Regards. 6 Path Weeb.